let's listen to, we mentioned this about Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, in our interview with Andrew Bacevich about the Afghanistan papers. This is essentially the Afghan papers basically outline how there was an effort that at least sounded concerted to lie over the course of 2 administrations to the American public, both by civilian and military leadership, as to the Afghan war, where essentially just about everybody involved, including, I can't remember his name right now, one of the premier point men of Afghanistan under Obama, was like, we can't, like, from Rumsfeld through Obama, there was some large understanding at the top of the military command, chain of command, that we don't even know who the enemy is. Like, we're not even sure who we're fighting here. And it's not a question of like, it's dark, we can't see who's there. It's a question of like, we don't know who we want to win. In other words, we can't even exercise a strategy because we don't have a goal. And that's stunning. That's just stunning. And apparently, basically what happened was Iraq not only served to sort of drain resources to answering that question, it provided the distraction from that question that everybody so desperately wanted. I mean, you start to understand that Iraq, at least in some part, served, and I don't think this was the reason for Iraq, but it was one of the sort of the unintended benefits to Iraq was that, hey, we're so busy with this cluster F over here in Iraq that we don't have to even contemplate how completely aimless our war in Afghanistan is and was from the very beginning. And here is Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff basically straw manning this. Here is his response to it.
General Milley, the Washington Post published what is being referred to as the Afghan papers, which suggested that public statements being made about the Afghan war were different from what was being said privately, and that, in fact, there were people who knew in this building that you were losing in Afghanistan. Was that your experience, and is it fair to compare the Afghan papers that have been published to the Pentagon papers?
I would say a couple of things, Jennifer. I know there's an assertion out there of some sort of coordinated lie over the course of, say, 18 years. I find that a bit of a stretch.
The argument nobody's making there's a coordinated lie. Nobody's making there's a coordinated lie. It's just everybody who's coming in dealing with this cluster F, they're all such cowards. They're all coming out of an institution that disincentivizes being the one who's blowing the whistle, right?
It shows multiple chains of lies. I mean, that's, if you read it, it does not show a grand lie. It shows multiple
right, that's what I'm saying. People just it's
and
all
lying
to our
against
benefit.
each
There's
other.
no coordination. There's not like people all. It's just everybody in a room is just going like looking to their left, looking to their right, and saying like, I'm not going to be the one who's going to sing a different song.
I know there's an assertion out there of some sort of coordinated lie over the course of, say, 18 years. I find that a bit of a stretch, more than a bit of a stretch. I find that a mischaracterization from my own personal experience. You're looking at probably hundreds of general officers, State Department employees, CIA, Department of Defense folks. I just don't think that you can get that level of coordination to do that kind of deception. I know that I and many, many others gave assessments at the time based on facts that we knew at the time, and those were honest assessments, and they were never intended to deceive neither the Congress nor the American people. I think that there's a very, very good piece of investigative journalism, but I also think it is not the Pentagon Papers. The Pentagon Papers were multiple volumes. I think it was 50 or 60 volumes of these things, and they were contemporary papers written in advance of decision making. The Afghan Papers, was an attempt by Segar in about 2,000 pages or so to do post facto interviews looking backwards to determine lessons learned for the force as we go to the future.
Yeah, and in that instance, we learned our lesson not to have contemporaneous and to have there wasn't voluminous questioning of what we should do. We just did it, and in this instance, we just looked back on it to find out what people were thinking contemporaneously, and that was that they were lying.
Wouldn't the contemporaneous documentation look worse
What's that?
than the looking backwards retrospective? How I read that is if you could have access to the current documentation, it might look worse than the retroactive one.
Well, if this guy's so sure of it, he should release any of the contemporaneous documentation, because that will clearly refute that we thought that we knew exactly what we were doing. Total waste. And what's stunning is just like, as we said with Pacevich, like this thing had. They're going to be talking about Ricky Gervais at the Grammys or Golden Globes or whatever it is that he hosted. People are going to be talking about that for a lot longer than they were talking about the Afghan papers. It's nuts.
Not us, though. We're proudly ignorant of pop culture.
We should lobby Ricky Gervais. We should have lobbied him to do some Afghan war log material.
Yeah, you want to speak truth to power? Let's get it.
I'm
Well,
sure
he did.
that'd
He had a good Epstein line.
really
so I
on
gotta
point.
give him props.
So